Today's lesson is going to be on two formulas, midpoint and distance. Midpoint of a line segment or distance of a line segment. Distance and length are the same thing. First thing I want you to do is look up these terms: scalene, isosceles, equilateral, and right. So these are terms you've heard in the past, and these are terms you'll need to know in this chapter because they're all talking about lengths of a triangle, lengths of the sides, or possibly slope, which we'll get into a bit of review. So please define those types of triangles. If you have a horizontal or a vertical line, finding the midpoint and the length is very easy. You can just use a ruler, or you can literally count the grid lines and find the middle or find the length. But usually lines are not on a straight horizontal or vertical position. Usually they're on some kind of an angle. So today you're going to be working with two formulas. Midpoint. This says x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2, because it's a point. The middle of the x coordinates and the middle of the y coordinates gives you the midpoint. The 1 and the 2 down here are not exponents, those are subscripts. So x1, the value from the first point, x2, the value from the second point, and then so on and so forth. So add and divide by 2 to find the middle. Distance or length is this formula. Again, working with 2 points. So x1, y1, x2, y2 are in the formula. You're looking at the difference between them to find the distance. And you can see this looks a little bit like Pythagorean theorem. And if you're curious as to why, I can explain that to you tomorrow. But this is finding the distance or the length between 2 points. So let's practice this. The first thing I want you to do is to label your points, x1, y1, x2, y2. I know that seems very elementary, but it will help us to not make a mistake. The ones have to come from the same point, and the twos have to come from the same point. But it doesn't actually matter which one you label, the ones and the twos, but just make sure the subscripts go together. Okay, so for midpoint, add the x's, divide by 2. So x1 is here, x2 is here. Add and divide by 2. And then the y values. 0 plus 2 divided by 2 came from here and here. And then it's just a quick calculation. So -1 plus 5, that's 4. And 0 plus 2 is 2. You do need to simplify the numerator before you do the denominator. So if you do that in one step on your calculator, please be very careful that you get the right answer here. You should get 2, 1 to be the midpoint. So 2 is in between -1 and 5, and 1 is in between 0 and 2. So that's midpoint. Distance is x2, take away x1. I've got a negative there, so I'm going to have to be careful with that sign, plus y2, take away y1. BEDMAS says simplify inside of the brackets first before I deal with my exponents and then my addition. So 5 take away -1 is 6, and 2 take away 0 is 2. 6 squared is 36. And 2 squared is 4. So I end up with the square root of 40. And then you will want to, for now, to know what that looks like as a decimal. So you will want to do square root of 40 on your calculator. And let's just round to 2 decimal places. So I'll say 6.32. If you have a calculator that gives you the exact answer, you will have square root of 40 as your end answer. But then use your S to D button. It will convert it to a decimal, and then you can round. So there's your distance between those points. Try this one again here. So again, I'm going to label them x1, y1, x2, y2. Midpoint is add and divide by 2. So -7 plus -7 over 2, and 8 plus -5 over 2. You can do this completely on your calculator, but make sure the numerator gets simplified first before you do your division. So -7 plus -7 is -14. 8 plus -5 here is going to give me 3. And then I end up with -7, and I'm going to leave this as 3/2. You might have got 1.5 as your answer too. I'm going to try to encourage you guys to keep your answers as exact as possible, and fractions will help us with that. So I'm going to leave that as 3/2. So you don't always have a whole number in the middle of your line. It doesn't always exactly work out to whole number points, and that's okay. We can leave that as -7 and 3/2 or 1.5. Distance. Now, x2 is -7 minus -7 and -5 minus 8. -7 minus -7, same thing as -7 plus 7, becomes 0. And then -5 minus 8 more is -13. You are going to have to get very comfortable with your calculator here. If you get an error message, it's because you forgot brackets or something, but -13 times -13 becomes positive 169, not negative. So that square means multiply it by itself. Negative times negative is positive. The square root of 169 is 13. So we're right back to that answer there. So some fairly basic formulas. I want you guys to try these next 2 questions, and this is where we'll take it up tomorrow. You have a map down here. It's asking you to figure out the distance between Val d'Or and Peterborough, I believe. Yep, Val d'Or and Peterborough. So I'm going to go with whole number points here. Val d'Or is here. I'm going to go with that number on the grid. Peterborough is here, so I'm going to go with that one. So for Val d'Or, it is at point 3, 3. And Peterborough is down here, so it's at 2, -5. Basically, this question is asking how far are those 2 cities based on the map here. And then you guys can take a look. There is a scale, so you try to figure out how close that is in kilometers once you figured out the actual distance with the formula. I also want you to do this question. Find out what kind of a triangle this is, length of the sides. You'll have to do length of AB, side AB with these 2. Then you'll have to do the length of BC with these 2. But a triangle has 3 sides, so then you have to figure out the length of AC with those 2 and figure out what kind of a triangle is it. Is it equilateral, scalene, isosceles? If you want to try to go one level more complex, try to see if you can also figure out whether it's a right triangle. So just do those 2 questions and we'll take that up tomorrow.